Mark, and this is Why I Hate the World. And today I'm going to do another video here on censorship. I just did one a couple days ago on the Black March, and it's getting a pretty good response so far. I mean, you know, not too bad. So yeah, keeping that going. But anyway, today I want to talk about SOPA and PIPA and a new thing called ACTA, which is another censorship type bill. So anyway, so as you all know, that we just had this big fight over the last couple weeks against these bills, SOPA and PIPA, the Stop Online Piracy Act, and then PIPA is the lesser known but just as draconian Protect IP Act, right? And unless you've been on the moon, you know that you know, there was lots of protests against these bills. You know, a big blackout day on Wikipedia and Reddit and a few other places, and I am happy to report that it appears that these two bills are dead in the water. So that's great. Congratulations, Internet. You guys did a good job. You know, it looks like the guy that wrote SOPA, at least, his name's Lamar Smith. He's a representative, and it looks like he pulled the bill, and congressional support for the bills crumbled. No, you know, thanks in part to our, you know, internet blackout protests. So, you know, and the final nail in the coffin looked like it was a vague threat from Obama to actually veto the bills, even though he never really came out and said it. But you know, so he's withdrawn. So SOPA has been withdrawn, and without SOPA, PIPA is gone too, because PIPA was like the congressional equivalent to SOPA. So it looks like we won for the time being. It's like, yeah, congratulations. Now I say that for the time being because, as many people out there have pointed out, bills like this in Congress pop up all the time, and it's really only a matter of time before another bill comes up that has essentially would be SOPA but in a different form. I mean, and SOPA itself was another version of a bill that was defeated in 2010. So basically, expect this to happen like every few years or so, right? And you know, so now people are talking about this thing called ACTA, which is not actually a bill, but it's a treaty, right? And there's about a dozen different countries which are signatories to this treaty, and it stands for the Counterfeit Trade Agreement. And basically it's the European Union, the United States, Canada, Japan, and a few others. And anyway, this bill is this treaty rather. It's a pledge to stop counterfeiting and copyright infringement, and also for some reason generic drugs, right? We'll get into that later. That's a whole nother video. And so if you're concerned about SOPA, then you should probably turn your attention towards this treaty. Speaking of which, I mean, I was reading through it. If you go on Wikipedia, right, they actually have a pretty good, you know, article on it, and there's a link to download a PDF of what the treaty is essentially. And the thing is that it's very early because a lot of the you know, the it's still being negotiated, so there's a lot of the stuff is like still up in the air. You know, there's no definite whatever, right? And I'm reading through it, and some of it actually doesn't sound so bad. Like, for instance, you know, the current wording, it's still very vague, you know. But I don't see. I mean, there's some of the things like which seem to make logical sense. Okay, I mean, the thing is, all right, you always want to, whenever you oppose stuff like this, you always want to know exactly what it is that you're opposing. Okay, I mean, because you go on the internet and you see people, and they tend to post sensationalist headlines, especially on sites like Reddit, you know. And people like to grab your attention, and and people tend to overreact on these things too, and they always think that whenever a new, like, you know, law comes up, that it's fucking one step away from us being in a police state, right? And it's not, okay? But so you should know what it is that you're talking about whenever you look at these things, right? And right now, ACTA doesn't really seem to be the end-all be-all, like, you know, we're not going to end up in Guantanamo Bay and shit because of this, but, you know, you'll see. Okay, so anyway, so I'm reading through it, and say there's Section 4, which is in Article 2.18, and that's titled The Enforcement Procedures in the Digital Environment, Option 1, Paragraph A. Reads in part, provide limitations on the scope of civil remedies available against an online service provider for infringing activities that occur by automatic technical processes and the actions of the provider's users that are not directed or initiated by that provider, and when the provider does not select the material, and the provider referring or linking users to online location, when in cases of subparagraphs 2 and 3, the provider does not have actual knowledge of the infringement, is not aware of the facts or circumstances from which infringing activity is apparent. You know, in plain English, that means that they can't shut your site down because of actions of users posting copyrighted material to it without your knowledge, okay? And that was one of the problems with SOPA, actually, was that they could do that. See, SOPA didn't make that distinction, right? Under SOPA, if you owned, like, say, a blog, right? Or a website like YouTube or something, and somebody came on there and posted a video that was copyright, they could shut you down under SOPA, right? Not only that, but under SOPA, if you just linked to it, then you could get shut down. So if you just, if you had a website and somebody came on and in a comment section posted a link to another site that hosted content, hosting material, then you could get shut down under SOPA. This ACTA thing doesn't allow that. This provision actually says that's not allowed, which is actually a good thing, right? I mean, I think that's kind of how it should run, okay? Because, I mean, the way it should work is that, you know, the person who brings the charge, right, the person who has been infringed upon should have to bring evidence to the police, and then the police should have to then arrest the people that are doing it and hold a trial. That's what I think should happen. I mean, that's kind of how it's always been, right? I mean, anyway, you know, none of this automatically shut you off shit, right? Now, there's some other things about ACTA here which aren't so good. So, for instance, if you look under Article 2.1a, the same article, Option 2, Section 6, Paragraph A, you see it reads as follows. In order to, each party shall provide adequate and effective legal remedies to protect electronics rights management information. Each party shall provide for civil remedies or as well criminal penalties in appropriate cases or willful conduct that apply to any person in performing without authority any of the following acts, or with respect to civil remedies having reasonable grounds to know that it will induce, enable, facilitate, or conceal an infringement of any copyright or related right, to remove or alter any electronic right management information, to distribute, import, or for distribution, broadcast, communicate, or make available to public copies of works or other subject matter specified under Article 14 of the TRIPS Agreement, performances or phonograms, knowing that electronics rights management has been removed or altered without authority. So, essentially what that means is that if I take a DVD and I rip the DVD and I compress it down to an AVI and then put that on the internet, that's against the law, right? That was already against the law. But the thing is, it's not only that, it's like, the thing that I don't like here is Section A, to remove or alter any electronic rights management information. So, you know, if I take a program and I remove the DMR for my own personal use, that's against the law, right? And this is something that they've been trying to do for a while, you know, ever since the DVD algorithm was decrypted in what was it, like 1999, I think, right? If I remember right, there was a 17-year-old kid who actually figured out the encryption for DVDs, and that's why you have programs that'll allow you to rip DVDs now, right? Those programs are technically illegal, and under this type of you know, under this type of agreement, if you have a website that downloads that kind of software that allows you to remove copyright protection, that would be illegal too. I mean, so that, you know, so it's so far though. I mean, ACTA doesn't seem to be too utterly draconian. I mean, from what I understand, that kind of thing was illegal anyway. Okay, but I don't really know. I mean, I'm not a lawyer. Okay, and the fact is, I mean, I only really skimmed through the legal text, and it doesn't sound like anything really too crazy. Like, there's a few other videos out there on the internet right now, like on YouTube and some other places, that are saying that ACTA is like, you know, basically fucking a worldwide takeover. You know, like one guy said that that it would require a government to require, it would require an ISP to monitor the traffic, like all traffic, and basically, you know, packet by packet, and then if the packet had, you know, copyrighted material inside of it, then they would just shut you off, right? And I didn't see anything in this so far, but if it's there, let me know. I mean, I didn't actually see that in the text of the actual law, but I might have missed it. I mean, you know, legalese is, it's like another language, and if you don't speak it, then it's easy to miss shit, right? So if it's there, please say this in my comment section, you know, if it's there. But anyway, I mean, that seems a little speaking of monitoring the traffic of every single person, I mean, it seems a kind of bullshit to me. I mean, is that even possible? You know, I mean, I'm not a computer network specialist, so I have no idea if it is or not, but it just sounds to me like, you know, let's say that if you're like, you know, AOL Time Warner or something, and you have, you know, 50 million users, right? How exactly are you going to monitor the traffic of every single one of them? It doesn't seem possible. I mean, and even if you were, doing so would slow down access to your customers like a lot. You know what I mean? If you had to actually sniff and examine every single packet that went through every single user to find out if there was copyrighted material in it, I mean, how is that even fucking possible? It just doesn't seem to make sense to me. Like, it seems to me, you know, and that's what I'm talking about when people say that, you know, they overreact. You know, they put these flashy headlines and shit in order to scare people, which is, you know, it's like, no, you have to know what you're talking about, you know. I mean, but if that's there, let me know, because I mean, just because I didn't see it doesn't mean it isn't there. So if ACTA actually has that requirement, then that would be a very bad thing. So please let me know, you know, right? So the fact is, folks, that these laws are just the latest in an effort by the entertainment industry to attempt to regain control over the channels of the distribution of content, which they really started losing about 30 years ago. And there's a video that actually Thunderfoot posted a few days ago, which is a video of a TED Talk that goes through the history of mass media companies over the last 30 years. And it's like, essentially every time there's an advancement in technology, they try to pass a law like this in order to stifle said technology. And the video is very informative, and unfortunately it doesn't say who the guy in the video is giving the talk, but I'm sure it's easy to find out. But I'll put the little link in the thingamajig, so definitely check it out. I mean, and it actually makes a lot of sense, you know. And now some people out there in the forums and the boards and stuff that I frequent see these kinds of laws as symptoms of a crumbling democracy, and basically say that we're falling into a police state, and this is like the first step of the, you know, if we censor the communications, and then essentially they're going to be breaking down your doors and shit like that. And, you know, I agree, but, because it is actually true that, you know, these laws, they have the potential to be misused, even if you were to pass something like SOPA, right? And it was intended just to stop, you know, file sharing and copyright infringement or whatever. The potential to be misused, the potential to stop political dissent on the internet is too great, okay? That's why I think a lot of the civil liberties people are so against it, because, you know, they're afraid that they're going to take these laws and apply them towards them, essentially, right? Now, something I would like to point out, though, is that, you know, SOPA didn't come out of the military, okay? It wasn't the FBI, it wasn't the White House, all right? They didn't write SOPA. It came from Hollywood, okay? Mega Upload was shut down, you know, ultimately by the Recording Industry Association of America, all right? Those are the people that brought charges against Mega Upload, right? It wasn't the FBI, it wasn't the police, right? It wasn't, you know, anti-copyright people or whatever, customs or any of that shit. It was fucking recording artists in union. You know, that's what the RIAA is, right? You know, and so I mean, the thing is, these laws, they're being passed not to stifle dissent or free speech, right, but to protect the profit margin of multi-billion-dollar companies, okay? This is where it's coming from. Now, it kind of makes sense now, you know. Now you start looking about, like, a lot of the events over the last couple of years, you know, Citizens United, you know, and how the Supreme Court, like, rules in favor of a corporation giving unlimited amounts of money to these super PACs, you know, and then you start seeing people like Mitt Romney coming up and saying, like, you know, corporations are people and shit, and you know, it starts making sense. It's like, fascism in the United States, it's not coming wearing army boots or brown shirts, all right? It's coming dressed in a suit and a tie. If you want to stop things like SOPA or PIPA or ACTA or whatever the fuck they're calling it this week from coming back, then you need to work towards eliminating the influence of corporations on our electoral process, all right? You need to elect some people with some fucking integrity who are not going to allow themselves to be bought off or, look the other way when these kinds of abuses happen, all right? I mean, the internet showed over the fight with SOPA and people that, we do matter, right? And we do have the ability to affect change, okay? We stopped that shit from happening, all right? We can do it, all right? And that's the ultimate thing, is that, it's going to take a lot of work and perseverance over years, okay? You can't just, change the society with an election. I mean, that's the problem. People in 2008, they went and they elected Barack Obama, right? And they thought that, he's just going to fix everything. And it's like, that's not how it works, all right? And democracy is a fucking, you have to participate, all right? Democracy is a process, all right? It's not an event, okay? And you have to be involved, okay? And it's the same thing, I compare this anti-corporate movement. I mean, I compare it to, say, the civil rights movement, all right? That shit just didn't happen overnight, okay? You didn't, Rosa Parks didn't just go get on a bus and get arrested, and then the next day, fucking, Jim Crow was gone, all right? And, no, it took decades. I mean, it started in the fucking 1950s, and it took a good, 15 years or so until finally they got the civil rights movement passed, and then, then another 40 years of the cultural, implications from that, and so it's not just something that you can't just go do something once and then expect everything to just fix itself. It's like, no, get involved, all right? Run for office. Support people that you want to see in office, right? And it matters who you fucking vote for matters, all right? I mean, I don't know. So I think, personally, a good starting point would be to unelect Lamar Smith. I mean, this is the guy who wrote SOPA, right? So I think it's time to get rid of his ass, okay? Because he's already shown where he stands, okay? And maybe if we start electing, some people in there who are with, integrity and fucking, right? And we start unelecting some people that support this fucking bullshit, right? Let's start getting rid of some of these people. Then maybe the other politicians will get the message, right? And they'll start fucking, they'll learn that you don't fuck with the internet. I mean, that's what I think we should do. And, while we're at it, let's unelect fucking Michelle Bachmann too, because fuck Michelle Bachmann. Adios, folks.